If your Eucharistic theology isn't hard to accept, it's not what Jesus taught. You know, like the Protestant view is just a symbol. That's easy to accept. That's nothing. Like the disciples of Jesus who stuck around in John 5 when he declared himself Lord of the Sabbath and called himself the Son of God, making himself equal with God, they were fine accepting that. And then they're supposed to leave over some vague metaphor about belief? Give me a break. The fact that this is a hard teaching and Jesus loses disciples over it tells us he's presenting something really radical. Now, I can already hear the objection. Sometimes when Jesus talks, he's speaking metaphorically and people think he's speaking literally. Absolutely. That's fair. But when you go line by line through John 6 and look at every time Jesus presents a teaching and then say, okay, how do the crowds respond and what do they think he means? It's really striking. When Jesus says that he's the bread come down from heaven, they just think originally that he's talking about, oh, free food. But then when he clarifies that he is the bread that comes down from heaven, well, now they still take the bread part as just a metaphor and just think Jesus means that he's coming down from heaven, which is what many Protestants seem to think Jesus means here in John 6. Jesus clarifies that you have to actually eat his flesh. And then they get horrified and say, well, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And then Jesus says, unless you gnaw his flesh and drink his blood. Now, think about it. Drinking blood is gross. Drinking blood, even animal blood, was also prohibited under Jewish law. And so he's doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. If all of that is just a bad metaphor for belief or something, what in the world is he doing? He's teaching in entirely the wrong way. Like if I'm trying to use a figure of speech and every time somebody clarifies like, okay, you just mean a figure of speech. I'm like, no, literally, my flesh is truly food. My blood is truly drink, which is what he says. Why does he keep clarifying that it's not a metaphor if he means that this is all just a big metaphor? So like reading John 6 shows he does not mean this in a merely metaphorical, symbolic way. But neither does he mean it in the way that we eat ordinary food or the way we would eat human flesh if we were cannibals.